I would add some very big caveats around the capabilities of 7.5, but as it's not released yet, I'm not going to bore you with all of those different things, because there's some super cool stuff that we can do with the new version, which is slightly more refined, but you'll have to wait for that. So, super. Okay, there's no more. Obviously, I'm going to be around afterwards, and we're going to have a Q&A session in around half an hour's time. So if you have any more, please bring them to the table. The more difficult, the better. I like the really difficult ones. So let's talk a little bit about sort of analytics and measurement. Okay, how many people are using Google Analytics? Great stuff. Anybody using Web Trends? Oh, poor Web Trends. Anybody using Site Catalyst? Anybody using anything else weird and wonderful? Feel free to shout out. Sorry? Excellent Analytics. Is it excellent? It's all right. It's their strap line. We'll get onto their branding now. Yeah, fantastic. It's all right. Super. So I think it's fair to say that every single person in this room is using analytics. Who wouldn't be? It tells us what people are doing on our website, justifies the ROI. You know, it starts to do stuff. So I was trying to find a nice little sort of graphic about you know, what marketers really need. And as you can see, the CFO, you know, he's spent a lot of time needing numbers. And essentially, if the CFO can't deliver a P&L, you know, and the associated reports he has to do, business falls apart. You know, investors get upset, shareholders get upset. It's a bit of an issue. Ops, you know, they want to understand cost versus benefit. They understand exactly how many people we employ. They understand what they're, you know, responsible for, how much they're paid. And at the end of the day, if they're not delivering the productivity, then that's cause for concern. So numbers really important. And when it comes to sales, you know, my sales director, Chris, I'm sure you've all met Chris before, you know, he really needs to understand who's selling what, who's meeting targets. It's all about numbers. Well, marketers, I mean, surely they just want random quotes on Facebook and create a little sizzle reel. Funnily enough, I talk to many, many marketers all day long, and it's only over the last kind of 2 years have I really seen numbers really starting to play a part in board reports and actual management information reports. We've always known how many websites visitors we're getting. We've always had Google Analytics in place. We've always been sort of saying, look, you know, I know how many websites visitors we've got. I know where they came from. I know what they did. But it's only in the last 18 months to 2 years I've actually started to see board reports and management information become wholly dependent on these actual analytics. So I think it's fair to say that this is becoming quite serious. As you see, everybody here is using Google Analytics, but nobody's using anything like sort of Site Catalyst. Is anybody using anything more advanced or weird and wonderful like SAS or Teradata or anything, you know, seriously supercharged? Okay, fair enough. Might be a wrong type of audience for those type of questions, but it's fair to say those systems exist out there. So ultimately, you know, we need actionable insight, and that's kind of a horrible sort of term to use because it doesn't really mean anything. But let's try and put a description on it. All the analytical data that we collect in Sitecore can be used for two purposes: real-time personalization and real-time marketing. In other words, somebody has done something now, therefore do something. And then post-match analysis. And that's what we're focusing on here. We're focusing on what has happened, not what is about to happen or what has just happened, but what has happened. So the Executive Insight Dashboard is the first place to start. It's kind of like a 30,000-foot view of your Sitecore website performance. Think of it as kind of the Google Analytics dashboard, not the big reporting system. It's a very clever system, Google Analytics. But think of it as saying, okay, how many people did we get today, yesterday, or the day before? How much value was generated? Where did they come? What keywords did they use? And which campaigns did they trigger? You will get an immense amount of data from this. Whether you can interpret that or use it, well, that's a different story. So we need to understand what is it we're actually looking for, what type of things are we trying to do, and I'm going to show you some other dashboards in a moment that can help with that. From the screen grab I've got here, you can see that I have the number of visitors and I have the search keywords reports up. Down the bottom here, I have a little resolution that allows me to change the context of what data I'm looking at. On the top left-hand side, I get the ability to choose my site and my language, and I get the ability to choose whether I'm looking at traffic sources or campaigns. So let's have a look at that. So once you've set up your site, you come back a day later, close the marketing center and bits and pieces. You can go back to the dashboard, and sorry, to the start menu, and you can go Executive Dashboard. What I can then do, because it's just a demo site, I only have a small amount of data in there. I can then refine the time that I'm looking to look at my data over. I reckon something about that's probably about right. Maybe just increase that a little bit more. There we go. So what can I now tell from this particular report? Well, I can see that over the last, 12, 18 weeks, something along those lines, I've taken my website visitors from 200 a day all the way up to 1,700 a day peak a couple of weeks ago, and we've kind of leveled out around 12, 1,300, okay? So that's the blue line. That's what's giving us the number of visits, okay? That's quite easy. We can hover over that, and it gives us a specific value. With the yellow line, that's the engagement value points. And all that simply is an aggregated figure of all of those engagement value scores that you've set up in your goals. So that's your 100 points, your 75 points, your 50 points, all collected together and just aggregated by date. Okay? These reports are all about aggregated data. There's nothing about individuals here. We're not concerned about individuals today in these reports. This is purely just aggregated. The value per visit metric then starts to give me, obviously, my value per visit score. What is value per visit? Value per visit is essentially just a comparative metric. It's a metric that you'll baseline in your head when you set up your website. Okay, day one, 15 goals set up on the website, a couple of thousand visitors gone through in the last couple of days. Value per visit on day one was 20. Day two, we made some changes, value per visit went down. Uh-oh, that's a bit of an issue. What does that mean? Well, if the value per visit goes down, it means you drove more visitors, but they did less. And if they're doing less, that either means one of two things. It means you've got your marketing wrong, or you're tracking the wrong things. Because if they're doing less, that either means that they're doing stuff that you haven't set up to track, or it means, again, you've got your marketing wrong, and they're not doing the desired action. Either way, you've learned something about the value of those visitors, as opposed to just whether they were there or not. In this particular graph, we can see that on this week here, we must have done something quite well, because whilst the number of visits didn't go up particularly well, the value did. So which day was that? Well, we could probably see that it's, between the 21st and the 26th, something particularly well happened. What was that? Did we send out an email that generated a huge amount of engagement value? Did we send out something, specific? Well, I'll show you how we can find that out in a bit. But ultimately, this gives you that 30,000-foot view of what is actually happening. You can click on the visit distribution over here, and this will then start to give you visit distribution by channel, okay? Channel being direct, referred, email, social, RSS, whatever that might be. Sitecore will do all of your traffic management for you quite well out of the box. So it will detect direct, it will detect referred, it will detect social, it will do a few other bits for you. One of the tick boxes on the DMS readiness checklist that Jonathan and Sandra have both talked about is to go in with your agency and just set up any of the other traffic types that you might be specifically wanting to track. Who's familiar with the Google Hummingbird update? Couple of hands going up. Okay, well, the Hummingbird update over the last few months, that's the update that Google has made, which means that you are no longer able to get all of the keywords from Google searches. This is where they have applied SSL security to almost every website visitor, including people who don't have a Google account. And what that means is because it's an SSL encrypted search, in other words, when they're doing something, they've got the padlock there, that means that when they click on the link and come through to your Sitecore website, all of the header information is encoded as SSL. It's encrypted. And because you're going from one site to another, naturally, you're not allowed to decrypt that information. Inside that encrypted information is the keyword, unfortunately. Now, obviously, if you pay Google a fair amount of money, as in fair, not fair as in fair, amount of money for Google AdWords, they'll let you have some of that data in the Google AdWords interface. But that's a story for another day, and I'm sure you love Google for it. Now, so you can do some stuff that detects keywords, and one of the things in Sitecore is the ability to have branded keywords. So this brand awareness report, which is 5 down on the right-hand side here, what brand awareness does is it isolates your brand name keywords from your non-brand name keywords. So that might be something you want to set up when you set up your Sitecore installation. So you could put in your brand name and any of your product names it's in the config in Sitecore. Your developers or your admins can do it for you, or there's a guide that shows you how to do it. And then when your reports run, it will show you the difference between branded keywords and non-branded keywords. For the rest of things like referred blog, referred community, referred analyst, all these different things, search engine organic, direct, for example, again, these will populate automatically for you, so it gives you a bit of distribution. How many of you at the moment really focus on the spread of channel attribution? In other words, you worry about whether they come from direct, paid, social, referred? A few hands going up. Okay. Is anybody prepared to tell me what they think that means to their business as a marketer, what the difference is, what you're focusing on? Go for it.
PPC is really strong for us.
Yep.
In that it converts higher than most of the other sources.
Sure.
But that means we have to be seen to be justifying it and measuring it to make sure that everything spend is returning.
Perfect. So that's exactly right. For those who didn't hear, it's high amounts of PPC. So a really good use case, if you've got PPC, then you may also want to investigate using a site called campaign code system, which we won't talk about today, but you can combine campaign codes and traffic sources. But the ability to isolate your paid in as a traffic source is really important for many brands. So again, Sitecore will do some of that automatically for you, but you will need to do some config, and you can use the campaigns metric. But separating up these different traffic types is something that's quite basic, but quite important, because then it gives you a value of attribution to a given channel. So, what if I was to look at another report? Well, I can go down to, for example, brand awareness. That's going to give me my branded keyword performance. So you can see, here we go, this is the number of visits and value per day for branded only keywords. And again, I get visit distribution, which should only give me direct or referred. I can go into things like source value. So not only am I now looking at which of my channels are driving traffic, when I move on to this report, I'm now interested in which channels are driving value. So I can then come in and have a look at a trend. So you can see here that direct is generating 13.82% of my overall value. Not visits, value. But what we can see is that compared from what week is that? So that's week 9. So when you compare those two previous trends, you can see that the following trend has gone up by 12,000%. So for some reason, our direct has gone up by 12,000. This is dummy data. If it goes up by 12,000%, there's either a problem or you've just spent £1 million on PPC that you've never spent before. But ultimately, this will then start to give you an increased trend of value. In other words, how did my value go up on a particular traffic source? And you can see the same for paid and so on. Just to give you an example, when we open up referring sites, on the top left-hand side of every report is a little question mark button. When you click on that, that will give you a little bit of information about what that report is telling you and how to use that particular report. So referring sites, pretty simple. I want to know which of the websites is generating the most visitors. So what I can do is I can come in and order that by visits. Just a little thing that you need to know about this dashboard, and there's some configuration settings that you can set up. Other doesn't mean untracked. Other means all of the other sites that don't have the same amount of value bundled together. In the latest version of Sitecore 7.2, this is 7.1, that other now goes away, and it just has a nice scrollable list of all the sites, because sometimes you can have hundreds of thousands of sites. So what you're really looking at is not the first row, you're actually looking at the second row down, really, to see which is your top performing site. So by visits, google.com is generating the most. Yahoo are close second. Excite.com, not sure if that still exists, but I'm sure another site can be put in its place. What's interesting, though, is the one that's generating the most value is not Google. It's all the other sites that are generating value. So what I can do is I can come into here and I can click on this, and I can then start to understand, again, which of those sites they are, and I can click on this and go into more detailed reports if I want to. I could order that by value. And again, depending on what you're looking to track, are you looking to track the number of visits or are you looking to track the value? I think initially, you probably still want to know visits, right? Everybody's revolving reports around visits. But maybe you could start to sneak this value construct into your reporting, into your baselining, into your benchmarking, so you get that different perspective on data. I won't go through all of the other reports down here, but I will just talk to you about the sites config and the traffic versus campaigns config. So in here, I can then choose which website. So if I'm running multiple websites, I can go in and choose those websites. I can choose multiple languages, so I can choose my site and then my language. Has anybody tried to implement Google Analytics on a multi-site where you have multiple languages per site config? Had issues with it? Been quite difficult to get attribution? Yep. One of the things that you'll find, if you've got multiple languages on a .com and a .jp and a .fr, but you also then have multiple sites, when you're implementing Google Analytics or any other tracking system, you'll find that what they can't do is pick up the context and the language. And that's something that gets quite deep into the way that multi-language and multi-site setups are created. So what that means is if you want to work out what is the performance of your French language on your Dutch site, for example, which you might have, Eurotunnel as an example have that, then the issue you're going to have is you're going to have to do wildcard queries on URLs, or you're going to have to find another way of actually tracking it. And that's by either customizing the Google JavaScript quite heavily or putting in some URL management. Basically what I'm trying to tell you is PIA, okay? Pain in the ass. With Sitecore, it's kind of done automatically for you. If you set sites up in one of the 2 or 3 kind of set up defined ways of doing multi-language, you'll find that you automatically have the ability to just select which site in which language. So what you have there is you have English:English. In other words, that's English in the English language. You could have a French site in English, you could have all sorts of different sites. So all of the languages you have for a given site will be listed here, and you can instantly refine your analytics by that. That's a really powerful, undervalued feature, but I appreciate that not everybody has multi-site, multilingual setups. So, what I can do is everything we've been looking at here when it comes to trends or when it comes to comparison is being based on a traffic source. In other words, direct, referred, paid, social, email. What we can do though is look at specific campaigns. I'm not going to talk about particular campaign setups right now because campaign coding and stuff is a different sort of construct in Sitecore, a different feature. But what you can do is you can actually look at the specific campaign performance as opposed to a specific channel performance. So campaigns here might be my Google AdWords. So again, this is the performance of my Google AdWords campaigns. This is the performance of my social media. This is the performance of my on-site campaigns, and then anything offline or uncategorized. You might have all sorts of other campaign names in here. So you might have email as a channel in here. You might have any of your direct. You might have printed QR codes, for example. The long and short of it is that in Sitecore you can generate a campaign code, and a campaign code can then be assigned to one particular piece of marketing content that's distributed across multiple channels. So if you're creating a message that says, we've just announced a special offer, and you're going to generate that and send that out through email, social, paid, you would apply the same campaign code to every single channel, and then when it comes back in, it will be attributed to a particular campaign as opposed to attributed to a particular channel. And that means that you have pivotable points, because you could go in and say, right, which of the campaigns had the most effect on my referred or on my direct, but which actually campaign which campaign went into all these channels. So you can kind of look at that data from 2 different perspectives. So you can go in and have a look at individual campaign performance. And here you can see I now have my list of different campaigns that I'm running. So I have my Facebook discount code, my Boss Chair, which is actually a pay-per-click campaign. I've got my newspaper, which was a QR code, my GoPro HD Hero, which was a campaign landing page sent out via email, and I seem to have Big Cat Safaris in there, which is probably a hangover from testing with another client. So ultimately, I can now start to go in and look at particular campaigns, which is a slightly better construct. Now, who uses Google UTM campaign? Okay, a few hands up. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. You have SC Camp. That's all it is. So, that's a quick tour of the dashboard. This dashboard comes in many guises. Okay, so you have the Executive Insight dashboard, which I've just shown you, but there are a couple of localized versions of this dashboard if you're using other Sitecore products. So if you are using campaigns, up on the top left-hand side here, you'll see that I've got under my Google AdWords category, I click on it and I get a limited set of reports just for that campaign. Okay, so that dashboard will tell me how many visits to that campaign, what the entry pages were, what the assets were consumed, in other words, downloads, media items, and then which were the goal conversions, and they're the engagement value goals specifically. If you're using Email Campaign Manager, then down here on the right-hand side, you'll get a nice little pop-up that gives you the performance of your email channel. And then when you go into individual email campaigns, you'll also get the same report as above. Okay, so it is localized a little bit. Now, there is another type of dashboard, or not dashboard, sorry, type of reports inside Sitecore. Okay, these are called engagement analytics. And whilst that dashboard that I've just previously shown you was aggregated data, these reports are individual user level data. Okay, now they are a little bit legacy in Sitecore. Okay, they are not going to be proactively maintained going forward. And when you see the release of 7.5, you'll see all the new sort of bits and pieces in there. But what this does is it allows you to go in and look at individual sessions, click on a specific session or user if they're anonymous versus known, and then you'll get everything. You'll get all the activity, all the pages they viewed, exactly how many milliseconds they spent on every page. In reality, you're probably never going to use this. Okay, it's so granular and so much data that interpretation of it's quite useless. However, there is one use case which is really quite useful. Okay? If any of you have ever been onto the Sitecore website or any Sitecore digital properties, or you've signed up for any Sitecore events and bits and pieces and given us your details, Mario and the marketing team over there will be able to go into CRM, put in your email address and find out every single page you clicked on, every event you signed up for, every webinar you watched. If you've logged in with Facebook, we'll know your relationship status, we'll know roughly where you live, we'll know all those bits and pieces. If any of you have sat inside a Sitecore sales pitch where I've been involved, I've probably shown you that and scared the hell out of some of your senior execs. Okay, so there is a lot of data that we do collect. So that is visualized in these reports, but it's not very useful inside the Sitecore system. So there is the ability to embed this inside your CRM. So if you're running Microsoft Dynamics, then we can give you some examples, and there is a connector available to get this data into CRM. If you're running Salesforce, then you can talk to the S4S connector guys over at Fuse IT, who you can buy a connector from them, which will do all of the same things as our Dynamics connector. Bringing that data into CRM provides a lot of value. And we've seen a few organizations who are doing this, where we're bringing in website activity, we're bringing in behavior, we're bringing in all the campaigns they've downloaded, and it's inside our CRM within around 10 minutes of somebody doing something from the web, okay? Goes into the Sitecore database, gets a bit of processing, ends up in CRM. And that's brilliant, because if you as a prospect come to the Sitecore website and look at a webinar, we know that you might have filled out the form and you said, like, I want to get in touch. But what we want to know is, which products were you looking at? Where did you come from? How many times have you been on the site? That means that our sales team can be more effective in starting up a conversation. That means that they might pick up the phone to you and say, you know what, I can talk to you about CMS. But at the end of the conversation, when things are starting to wrap up, and go, so what do you know about email? And he knows that he's actually looked at the email campaign manager page. He knows that he's watched the email campaign manager webinar. Again, it's that sort of Salesforce effectiveness that you can give with that type of data. Hands up who runs in a kind of a B2B sales organization or a high-frequency call center type operation. A few hands up, great stuff. If you want to talk about it in a bit more detail, come and grab me or one of the team, and we'll show you some really good examples of how that can work for you. Now, the dashboard that I've shown you and the engagement analytic reports are available to you inside your system now. You can download those, you can install those. Before I talk about what's up on the screen there, you can take all of that data out of SQL Server and put it into your own business intelligence warehouse. You can put it into your own dashboard reporting tools. I know the guys at Furniture Village have built a really nice custom campaign dashboarding solution. It's very clever. Ultimately, you can do that. That's your data. You can do it. Obviously, with 7.5, there'll be a kind of bit more capability, so you won't necessarily need to extract it. If you, however, you need serious business intelligence, you need serious report designing, you need some very granular data analysis, then we have a tool called the Engagement Intelligence Analyzer. You know we all love an acronym at Sitecore, so this one is the EIA. What this does is this gives us kind of MI/BI type reporting capability, the ability to storyboard, the ability to pivot around data. It's based on an OLAP cube. I don't know if you're familiar with an OLAP cube, but that's really the ability to take data, aggregate it, process it, and make it highly queryable extremely fast. The Sitecore EIA is based on a proprietary product, which is why we can't give it away to you for free, and that's called Target, okay? Target is a leading, business intelligence software vendor. There are opinions and arguments about who's the best out there, but they're equivalent to Tableau, Cognos, Good Data, and ClickView, and any of those type of systems. It just so happens that our resellable version is based on Target. There is not a cost for the OLAP Cube capabilities and bits and pieces. For some of our customers, you'll have to talk to myself and the customer account management team specifically about the costs, but I'm being open with you. But if you wanted to buy the Target solution, for customers who are willing to participate in some marketing stories and some sharing stories, we will loan this to you for a relative period of time that suits, so that we can actually test and see how this product is working for you. If you are a data geek and you're a data scientist and you just want to get on in life, then you can come and purchase it, and we'll hand the keys over very quickly. You are more than welcome to approach your partner and ask them to implement this in a trial fashion for you. It's available to your partners as a download now. And again, if people are willing to cooperate and collaborate and share their data with us and be a part of the story with Sitecore, then I'll come on site and I'll help you with this tool. I'm not going to go into detail about it because it's unfair to, given that it's a paid-for tool and not part of the product right now. Just to give you a bit of idea about what's coming in the future. So there is a level of functionality that sits in between the dashboards and capability that we have and the super awesome power of this tool. And that capability is probably going to be realized as Google Analytics' type interface. So when Sitecore 8 gets released, which will be September, October time this year, you'll probably see that at Symposium and some of the new pieces being rolled out. By the time you upgrade, there will be a new dashboard available to you as part of the product, which is kind of halfway between those two solutions. I do believe that the built-in dashboards now will give you a lot of value. I do believe they'll give you a lot of data. We've been working with quite a lot of organizations recently to sort of show them how to get value out of these dashboards and how to supplement their existing reporting strategies. If you've got a very basic reporting strategy, where all you do is open up Google Analytics and look at how many visitors you've got, then this is going to be way more than you ever need anyway in terms of the built-in stuff. If you do use Google Analytics quite heavily, then maybe we're a supplementary type of analytics to your existing strategy. Come and talk to us, though. We really want to know what you're doing, how you're doing things, because ultimately, the strategy from Sitecore is that our most demanding customers really do kind of set the bar and set the capabilities of the product for the future. So come and be demanding with us. Come and show us what you really want out of Sitecore, and I promise you that you'll be a part of product development and part of that. I'm not sure if Katie's here. She's around somewhere. So Katie's our customer enablement director, and Katie's responsible for our customer leadership board. So again, we're looking for customers all the time to be a part of that, okay? So we want to hear from you if you've got some serious analytics requirements. Go from there. Okay, so is there any questions about analytics? Can I talk you through anything? Can I show you anything specific? Do you have anything that you would like to ask? Yes. You can put as many websites as you like in Sitecore. I believe that the customer with the most is running something like 1,800 websites in Sitecore in one deployment across multiple servers. I believe we've got people from Kia and Land Rover running hundreds of dealer websites and stuff inside Sitecore. So, yeah. The analytics dashboard there will just populate with all the different analytics. Obviously, you have the questions about, do I apply one engagement value scale to every single site? In reality, it depends. You know, if every single website's the same and they're all tracking the same, they're just branded with different colors, then maybe. But if they've got completely different business strategies, then you'll probably have a separate engagement value scale, and then you'll create a goal category for a category named for each site deployment, something like that. So, super. So, any more questions? Far away.
Yeah, what's the main advantage of using the analytics built into Sitecore compared to, say, Google Analytics? Now, I know you I know you mentioned about multi-language sites and so on. If you're only on a single language site, why would it be better to use the Sitecore Analytics than Google Analytics? Because you can add values to Google Analytics. Marketeers can do it even with Ajax calls and so on. You don't need to go back to the developer or the partner to do it. So.
Yeah, I guess...
And also the advantage of Google Analytics can be taken from site to site. Even if you stopped using Sitecore in the future, you would carry on with the same.
It's very true.
Look at your last year's analytics.
That's very true.
This year's.
Yeah, it's very true. Well, red rag to a bull question, really. Not bad. I like that one. So why would you use Sitecore Analytics as opposed to something like Google Analytics? Well, there are many, many, many trains of thought on this one. The first one, accuracy. Okay, Google Analytics is statistically relevant data. It's normalized, it's aggregated, and it's not forced to be 100% accurate, okay? It's sampled. So if you've got 1,200 visits per day on your Google Analytics dashboard, in reality, you've probably got about 1,400 or so in your Sitecore dashboard. So accuracy is one train of thought that we can go down. Using Google Analytics requires that JavaScript has to be loaded into the web browser, and that JavaScript then has to be executed. So if a visitor clicks on a page and your server's slow at responding, or there's network issues, or you have problems, or whatever it might be, and that page doesn't load fully, then your Google JavaScript is not going to be triggered, or not forced to be triggered, okay? It will, it's quite good, it's asynchronous, and all those other bits and pieces. So it's not forced to be triggered. So you'll miss that click, you'll miss that visit. Sitecore is very different. Sitecore is server-side analytics, which means that when you hit the Sitecore server, it's instantly starting to record that visit, even though it hasn't sent anything back to the customer. So again, we kind of get that drop-off, we get that miss. So accuracy is one. You are right in that you can put a value of a goal. You can set a goal in Google Analytics, okay? And you can put a number into that. But what you can't do with any of that analytics is use it in real time. Google Analytics does not allow you to get data out on a per user, per session basis to do something with it. So if you want to personalize a page based on how many times somebody's been on a website, That's not possible with Google Analytics. So you've got the usability aspect. You've got the what can I do with that data. I'm a big believer in post-match analysis and putting reports in front of the boss that says we've done X, Y, and Z. But what I'm much more believe in is the ability for a marketer to go, I'm going to change the way people are doing stuff on my site today, now, with something that was done this morning or something that was collected yesterday. You can't also use any of the Google Analytics data in your other channels, okay? So I want the ability to trigger off emails based on a customer coming on the website more than 5 times in a given set period. So when you extend out to the other Sitecore properties and the other Sitecore platforms, you know, kind of things like campaign management and engagement automation and email triggering and bits, again, the Sitecore data is just implicitly available to you and you can use it. There's also another kind of angle, and this is kind of mitigated by Google Universal Analytics, which means that they can now track anything from any channel, Internet of All Things type sort of approach, is that, again, Sitecore's interaction data capability. So I can not only just track the number of page events or what they've done or where they've gone, but I can actually track anything from any channel. So if I've got SAP data, if I've got CRM data, if I've got offline data, I can feed all of that into the Sitecore Analytics engine. I can report it through those channels, but I can pass it up to the personalization engine, up to the campaign engine, up to the marketing automation suite. Now, what would be really nice is if we had the power of Google Analytics as UI on top of the Sitecore data. And that's really what we're working towards right now. That's what Sitecore 8 will be. It will be a lot of other things as well, but the idea is that there will be a much, much richer capability in terms of reporting dashboards, which will then give us that kind of overall story. So what am I trying to say to you? Are you going to rip out Google Analytics right now and just use Sitecore only? I said before, if you're only just using it to view the number of visits on your website, then probably, yeah, you could turn off Google Analytics and just use Sitecore. You probably never turn it off. You probably always just leave it on collecting data as a backup anyway, because it's just a nice strategy. If you are using quite advanced, you know, customized, exportable, pivotable, GA-type reports, then Sitecore is probably going to be a supplement to that, and we've got some strategies for interacting with that. But I'm a massive believer in that Google Analytics will only, or any other system will only give you post-match analysis. It will never give you that real-time, one-to-one marketing that you need. Hopefully that gives you a bit of food for thought. Far away.
Can you tell us what you're doing to ensure there's capacity in Sitecore and among the partners so that they have as much knowledge and can support customers in the same way you can?
Sure. All of the services that I provide, and Sandra and I and the rest of the team provide, are provided directly to partners, in that generally, when I say I'm working with a customer, what that really means is I'm working with their partner to help them. If you are a customer with a partner, then I will always say to you, I need to speak to your partner first so we can work with them, so that there is not only a knowledge transfer, but it's being dealt with in the correct way. If you are a customer that doesn't have a partner, it's an internal dev team, then I'll probably try and bring a partner into the process, but then I can help you directly, or we can help you directly. All of our partners have access to a whole bunch of training courses, which are curriculum-based, paid for, certified. But our partners have also access to things like our DMS Jump course, where they can come on and spend 2 days with us for free, nice lunch, nice bit of dinner in the evening, and we actually teach them for 2 days, rock solid, about what they're doing. So our partner base is our #1 focus when it comes to knowledge sharing and knowledge management and getting it out there. Our partners also have access to the SPN. And on SPN, there is all of the internal documentation that we use as to how to teach clients, how to talk to them, and how to operate in that type of methodology. And anything else we deal with kind of ad hoc on the fly.
I think my fear is that some partners will only have one client who's at the very early stages. How do they build up real experience? And I think I'd want to, you know, if that was the case, then I'd want to go to the source of the information and how are you going to build capacity to do that? You know, because it's not, you know, not every partner is going to have a lot of their clients who want to do it, or however any of them.
That's right, and that's kind of a chicken and egg demand versus supply type discussion. If we have a partner who only has one customer, and that customer wants to do extremely advanced things that the partner can't provide, we will support them 100%, but the partner has to be committed to doing that. That's ultimately our response to that. If the partner isn't able to deliver those services, then there is a very strong network of partners who will interoperate, who will cooperate. There are partners I can see sitting here in the room who have contracts where one does creative, one does back-end, one does analytics, one does this, that, and the other. So we will always find a way to make that work, and we're learning as we go. You know, new ways of working with different partners. The partner base is growing quite heavily. The most important thing is the customer's never going to be left out, but when it comes down down to reality. If the customer has this much to spend and has that much to do, and the partner isn't able to provide those services, then that's kind of a, that's a dead end in some respects. So, yeah, we're always there to support, and if anybody's got any suggestions, feedback, collaboration ideas, or ways that we can increase the knowledge and the learning and bits and pieces, then I'm all ears, and it's my job to, to respond to those things. So, far away. I don't know what the exact percentage is. In the UK, we're probably hitting around 9 or 10% in terms of customers who have analytics turned on, collecting goals, doing basic amounts of personalization, and using the engagement value construct. There's probably about 30% have actually got it turned on and collecting data, but are still using GA and things, and that's mine and Sandra's, target. We're going around and ensuring that our partners are in the best place to make sure that those customers who have got it turned on are getting value out of it. The one thing that we have seen, which is a testament to a lot of the Sitecore training capabilities, is that every customer that goes through training, every partner that goes through training, it's now been enabled by default. So again, the platform is set up, delivered with analytics running, and what is a concept that I love is curiosity. Curiosity takes over. Oh, what happens if I click on this? Oh, there's a graph. Oh, what does that do? Oh, what happens if I click on this? And we're now starting to see partners come back to us and say, guys, the client's been playing with this. What should we do? And again, we're starting to see a lot more people taking over and the concept of curiosity sort of coming in. So it's low percentages who are using the full stack, but it's good percentages who are using the overall kit and capability. So, super. At the back there. How do I use goals and analytics to optimize the customer journey? That's a great question. This is where we look at a concept that we call low-hanging fruit. Okay, so there's a couple of documents around this, a couple of presentations, and a couple of workshops that we can run. If you have goals set up and you have analytics collecting and you have a user-defined journey, then you can go into that dashboard and you can say, right, okay, you know what? I created a goal that says this month I want to increase brand awareness on my site. It's a focus. It's a marketing strategy. I want to increase brand awareness. And what that means is I've started to add new Facebook like buttons, new share buttons, and new bits and pieces that allow people to get content off my site and out into that world. So I've set up a goal that's called social share, or I've got a category that says shares, and I've got likes, ratings, comments, all those types of things. If you go into that dashboard and say, right, you know what? We moved the like buttons from below the fold to above the fold, and looking at the dashboard for that week, that goal went up. Tick. That's that done. How can you then optimize the journey? Well, you could say, okay, well, what's the value of somebody liking a piece of content? How am I going to reward that person with it? If they've liked it, clearly that's not a primary goal, it's probably a secondary goal, but what is the primary goal that I want to get that person to complete? So maybe the like and the brand awareness is all around maybe an event generation business, where you've got a lot of events, for example. Maybe you're a B2B or whatever it is where you've got lots of industry events. So what you could do is say, okay, well, I've got my primary event set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go onto my homepage, I'm going to create a little spot on the right-hand side, and I'm going to create a personalization rule. So I'm going to open up the personalization editor. Let's do a little demo. And this is where Anthony goes off the demo script. So any yellow screens are not my fault, they're yours. Come on, warm up. See, I told you I shouldn't have done this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say down here, I come into the little two people holding a pencil, and I'm now going to create a personalization rule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, if customer has liked. So I'm going to go edit. And this is where I now need to choose the condition. So I go goal. So has the customer triggered the specific goal? Which goal do I need to choose? Well, I'm going to say where the customer has socially liked. Click OK again. I now need to choose a piece of content. So because it's news in there before, and you can see down here in the grey area, I'm not going to now show other news. I'm probably going to show something a little bit different. So this is where I change this little box at the top here that says enable the personalization of the design and not just the content. So what I do is I click on this little item here, and I can now put in a sidebar text. So I click select. I now need to choose the content for that. And I'm going to put in a charming anecdote. Oh, actually, I don't have a special offer. So I'm going to say special offer for people who have liked us. Hello? So when I click on OK, that now gives me a little roller deck. I press up, and what I need to do is just save that. This might not be configured to work in this particular spot. Yeah, it's not. So what happens is, if that really worked, that would actually put a little charming anecdote in there with a piece of sidebar text. It's always annoying when that happens, but if we go over to this page here where I do know it works. Customer has liked us, and I'm going to just change this to my special offer for people who've liked us, because I've already created it. I'm just going to turn that on, hit save. And as you can see, I now have two versions of that content. So again, as the goal gets triggered, that personalization spot will change. Now, what I can do is I can now start to create those journeys that say, you know what, if somebody's done something, show a piece of text, show something different, try and move them down a different journey. Naturally, I'm going to be cross-checking against my analytics dashboard to see whether engagement value is going up or down. Now, when it comes to actually optimizing a journey, that big dashboard gets a little bit useless because that's big aggregated data. So let me show you another type of reporting that can be very useful. So this is a module that you will need to download and install off of the Sitecore Marketplace. Just go to marketplace.sitecore.net. It will be available to you. And this is called the Personalization Effectiveness Tracker. Everybody loves an acronym, the PET tool. So when you open up the Personalization Effectiveness Tracker, PET, you can come into the content tree, click on an item, and this will then start to tell you all of the different personalization versions that are available on the page and what the stats are for them. Now, in my little demo site here, I only have one configured, and I've only had one that's been triggered. So you can see down the bottom here that out of all the 9 different component variations I have, the AdWords one, which says if they've triggered the Office Supplies AdWord campaign, then show them something different. You can see that I've had 2 people trigger that, and I've had X amount of engagement value assigned to that particular component. So imagine if you had 6 or 7 goals in a particular journey flow where you're trying to lead them to a primary goal. You can then find out which goal is being triggered by which personalization version. Ergo, working out which secondary activity results in your primary activity, because that's what we're looking to track. We have a primary goal, but we create all these other marketing things to try and get them to that goal. It might be view a free trial, it might be watch a video, download a brochure, create something personalized. But the idea is that as we start to personalize journeys, and as they do something, show them something more contextual, you can use this personalization effectiveness tracker to work out which is the most appropriate version. That's just one example of optimizing a customer journey. If I was to get really, really deep into Sitecore, and we're stepping outside the bounds of this conversation overall, what I'd be looking to do is to hook this up to marketing automation plans that then start to do things like callback management or email sign-up nurturing. This is a conversation for another day. If you've got the desire for orchestrating and workflowing and page designing these up, then come and chat to us, and we'll be more than happy to help you and your partner implement these types of activities. But this is where we can not only orchestrate stuff in real time, but orchestrate stuff that happens off-site. Customer has attended event, great stuff. When the data's loaded back into CRM, move from state 1 to state 2, send them an email through Email Campaign Manager, track the effectiveness of that, and all those wonderful stories. There's a really good video available from Nissan Australia. I believe we presented it last time, didn't we, Steve? Yeah, so if you can't find it on Sitecore YouTube channel, then get in touch with your customer account manager, and we'll see if we can share that, where they're using the marketing automation. What was the airport one, Steve, where we're doing the ancillary cross-sells? Sorry? Auckland Airport, that's right. So there's Auckland Airport where it uses automation to detect when your flight is due, and then if you haven't booked car parking, recommends car parking to you through email and text message and those types of things. So some really clever uses of that. So, okay, any more questions? Or does that answer your question to start with? Super, any more? Yep.
Obviously makes it a lot easier for everything in the business. In terms of the demonstration I've seen today,
course.
going to our partners and spending money.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. So how do we put tags onto pages without developers? In reality, even implementing Google Tag Manager still requires a developer to do something with it because they actually have to load in all of the Google Tag Manager JavaScript into the interactions on the page. There is some quite clever stuff that allows you to drag and drop over the page, select an element, and then it gets done. But that does fall apart if your semantic code is not being set up particularly well. So assuming the developer's done a good job of building the site, Google Tag Manager does a great job of giving the power to the marketer. There is a product that has just been silently-ish released by Sitecore, which allows us to do third-party website tracking, in other words, track non-Sitecore sites. It's in its infancy, and I wouldn't recommend anybody really look at using it right now because some of the pitfalls and perils of doing it. But that project is going through kind of phase 2 now. And what that means is that we now have a visual designer on a site that allows you to open up your Sitecore page, highlight an item, click a button, and that will then allocate a click event to that. So it's like a kind of JavaScript system that allows you to go into the Sitecore page editor, click on an element and say assign a goal, assign a click, assign an event to that. It will likely end up being Sitecore 8 before that gets released, just because I know how the Sitecore engineering process works. However, if you have common components that you use all the time in Sitecore, there's no reason why you couldn't add what we call a custom experience button. So just let me see if I've got one of those hanging around somewhere. I think I have one here. If I scroll through these items to number 5, no, maybe not in this one. Let me just grab another site for you. Office Core, this one here. What the custom experience button allows you to do is to put in little controls and little buttons that will allow you to allocate text strings or goal strings and things like that to components. This assumes that the developer has done this so that when you're adding these controls to pages, it works. So if I scroll up to the top, you'll see that I have this little JW player here for videos. Now, these little buttons on the on the left-hand side of this ribbon here are what we call custom experience buttons. When I click on this, that then gives me essentially a list of drop-downs, a list of field values. In this application of custom experience buttons, I'm allowing the marketer to specify the background color, the skin, the height, and the width of a video player. So this is where a developer has created a panel that allows you to set a value for something that you wouldn't normally be able to touch because it's a developer-y thing. You can do exactly the same thing with goals and components. But that assumes that you have set that up for all of your different components and bits and pieces. So you can ask your developers to do this. It's probably around 4 to 5 hours worth of dev time added to your build. But we will be delivering in Sitecore 8 a much more fancier version and kind of abstracted version of doing that. In my experience so far, though, setting up goals as developers, for those goals that need to be tracked, I've not seen anybody take more than 4 or 5 hours to actually go and get those set up in most scenarios. There are some quite more complex scenarios that I know of, but yeah, we are working on it, but in reality it shouldn't hinder you because the data and value you'll get out of it once you've got through that process should be outweigh that process. Hope that helps. We're getting there. So, super, any more questions? Have I gone massively over time, Steve? Oh, sorry, got another question. How are we doing on time? Okay, super. Go for it.
Yeah, just wondered if you had any plan on our website. We have a big problem with it's quite a window shopping browsing type site. We don't really capture their details until they actually buy something.
Yeah.
So it means trying to track someone through the site is very, very difficult because what we also find, we assume, is that a lot of people in their lunchtime at work go on our site, look, browse, decide they want to buy, go home, maybe speak with their family or whatever, and then buy on a completely different device, quite often a tablet, because we see a lot of PCs lunchtime, a lot of tablets in the evening. Of course, it's very, very difficult then to see how we've converted that person. I know there is some companies out there who are addressing this, ad companies. They're doing remarketing where you can actually get remarketing ads on one device and they follow you to a completely different device and they do things like using Facebook pings and things with
digital fingerprinting type stuff.
With a thing with Facebook. Is there anything on those sort of lines that's coming from Sitecore?
So, great question. Basically, how do you track users across devices? Because we lay a cookie that is individualized, if a user identifies themselves on their desktop, in other words, they type in an email address or they log in with Facebook on that device, they then go home and they identify themselves with another device, that becomes a multi-channel record in the Sitecore Analytics, okay? So we can go to that record and say how many channels have they got and then which sessions were on which channels. We have that. That's easy enough. There's no magic bullet, though, that says if they've not told us who they are on here and they've not told us who they are on here, then, well, there's no magic bullet that can do that. We're not working on any technology that allows us to do that. The whole kind of remarketing, digital fingerprinting type stuff is a little bit kind of steps into the realms of privacy issues and stuff. So there's a few people have got a few things to say about that. I'm not sure if you've read kind of, Chief Martech or e-consultancy reports around that. The only thing that I can say is that if you really want to have the best chance of tracking them across those different channels is implement, for example, the email campaign manager, which will then do all your campaign coding for you so that when you send it out, they open it up on this particular device. Even if they don't click and they open on this device, you'll know that what their particular device is and things like that because of the email open detection and things like that, and it's all unique. Use the social system to send out tweets and things because then it will apply, URLs and campaign tagging on that. Yeah, no magic bullet and nothing coming from us yet. Nothing coming from us yet. We've got, I'd say as a platform, we've probably got the best answer to tracking across multiple devices, but I agree there's these companies out there who are doing weird and wonderful things, and I'm not sure how they're going to pan out yet. So. Super. Any more questions? In that case, hope it's been useful. Thank you very much, and I will see you again in an hour's time. So, thank you.